When I feel like shit, it usually means it's time for a glow up.
Everything possible to get myself glowed up and ready for the trip that I'm about to go on. So if you guys want to follow along to see how I did that, keep watching.
I've been having a rough time recently, and I just got back to work.
Say some nice things about yourself. Okay,
This is the very culture that drives young girls as young as 10 or 11 to have 10-step skincare routines for imperfections they don't even have. This is the very culture that drives the relentless pursuit of youth, as if aging naturally is something to be feared, something to be avoided. Most damaging of it all, this is the very culture which subconsciously teaches us through countless visual stories, songs, movies, and trends that in order to get everything you have ever desired, you must become beautiful. People start respecting you. You get the friends you have always wanted. The bullies finally stop tormenting you. And the boy you have always had a crush on is suddenly madly in love with you. Beauty not only becomes a requirement for a eventful, happy, successful life, but it also becomes a requirement for basic human treatment. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look better, and there's thousands of research that shows that putting more effort in your physical appearance can help you gain more confidence. However, with the rise of glow culture and trends, the line between how much we let beauty affect our self-confidence versus our self-worth, which are two different things, blurs. The Ugly Duckling is a short fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen that follows the life of a little ugly duck. The second he hatches, he creates great stress in the family and is mocked by his own siblings. His mother is accused of cheating, and they force the ugly duckling to flee. As he tries desperately to find a home that would accept him, he's endlessly tormented both physically and mentally because of his appearance. It is not until he stumbles upon a pond one day and finds a swan, which he expresses great jealousy of her looks. The swan laughs and tells him to look at his own reflection, and underneath that reflection of the lake, he sees that he, too, is a beautiful swan. Modern Gloam stories are reminiscent of that very same narrative. The main character goes through some drastic physical transformation, whether it is because of the course of time, as it was in The Ugly Duckling, or it was self-inflicted, or it was inflicted on by others, and then their life drastically changed for the better. Time and time again, this same narrative was spoon-fed to us through different type of media. If this all began ever since we were children, it is no surprise to see the effects it has on us right now. It is much harder to shed away that belief or even see what's wrong with it in the first place, because all we have seen are the pros of this, are the evidence of this narrative being true. The Ugly Duckling is a pretty hopeful and beautiful story, and although I do think this is more about finding the right environment than physical appearance, because the story would have turned out very differently if the Ugly Duckling, which was never a duck in the first place, grew up in the right environment. He would have never felt like an ugly duckling. But I also see how this feeds into the glow up narrative. If you're an ugly duckling, just be patient, and one day you'll grow up and find yourself transformed into a beautiful swan that others gape and fawn over. And when that happens, you'll find that all your life worries will magically disappear, and you'll live happily ever after. However, the brutal reality of this is that not all of us are going to turn into beautiful swans. For some, it'll take longer than others. For others, it will never happen. For most, it'll just be a stubborn desire to keep striving for more. Of course, that is not to say that there is something wrong with wanting to strive for more. I believe that it's natural. However, I feel like the line is crossed when we start believing that we must conform to a certain narrative to be able to achieve happiness. It transforms from a desire, I would like to feel like, or transform into a beautiful swan one day, to an inherent need. I need to transform into a beautiful swan in order to feel happy, loved, or respected. Obvious issue with this belief is that love, happiness, and respect should never come at the price of something. You can feel better about yourself when you're more put together, but that doesn't mean that you must only feel good about yourself when you're put together. Let's take the example of Guru Samsa from the Metamorphosis, and yes, I am absolutely aware that it sounds absolutely irrational to compare the tale of a man turning into a bug to beauty standards, but I promise this will all make sense in a minute. The Metamorphosis follows the tale of Guru Samsa, your typical salesman. He is exploited by not only his company but also by his own family members. He works day and night just to give his family members a good life. He's always traveling, so he can't even call one place his home, and he's just overall miserable. So when one day he wakes up as a bug, it leaves the readers questioning, is this a blessing or is this a curse? In the story, Gregor's sense of self was deeply intertwined with his ability to work, specifically the fact that he was able to work and be of use for his family. That was his sense of self. When he transforms into a bug, he loses that very essence because he can't work as a bug, and that is what ultimately leads to his death. This begs the question, when beauty is the essence of who you are, when that is how you dictate your sense of self, what are you when you become stripped away from that very thing? Logically, you're still a human. You might still be a friend, you might still be a student, you might still be a parent, a child. But mentally, would you even feel like a human? Not only that, but when beauty becomes a basic requirement for happiness and self-love, there's a high chance that you'll never attain it because most of our image of beauty is deeply affected, deeply influenced by external perspectives, external views, and external beauty standards, which, by the way, are always evolving and changing. They are always fluid. They never stay in one place. The bar will always keep rising and rising because, no surprise, that is how companies earn their money. They create an inherent need in us, and then they make us want to feel that we must earn money, get money to be able to feed into that standard. And this is not to say that we're all just mindlessly following beauty trends, but because it is so ingrained in every type of media that we consume, it is very hard to even notice the effects on us until it's too late. Wrinkles are now something to be terrified of. Head dips are now something to get rid of. We're so obsessed with getting rid of or adding something to our own body that we forget to appreciate the natural shape, the natural beauty that comes with having a human body. When you hear the concept of before and after transformations, you most likely already have an image in your head of someone who looks worse in the beginning and looking better after. Sometimes it has other names such as ugly to pretty or poor to rich, but it is overall just the very same concept, and this is the very essence of the glow-up culture. Yet, I want to question this by showing you my very own transformations. Would you call this a glow-up? Some would say yes, because I do physically look more put together. I have my hair done, my makeup done, and I'm dressed nicely. Others would say no, because it's just makeup. I didn't physically change anything. Or what about this? This was before my weight loss journey, and right now. I have physically changed because I lost weight. If you were to call these two transformations a glow up, it'd also be similar to saying that somebody who represents my past self is worse looking than somebody who might represent my current self. So in this case, someone who's a bit chubbier compared to someone who's less chubbier, or someone who doesn't have makeup compared to someone who has makeup. There's countless of trends that go on like this, but to give a more specific and a bit more extreme example are the celebrities before and after transformations. The already conventionally attractive person to an even better looking person. If Kylie Jenner before her glow up was considered horrendous, laughable, and ugly by a large group of people because she had thin lips, chubby cheeks, and wasn't conventionally attractive, then what does that make me? Somebody who has thin lips, chubby cheeks, and not conventionally attractive. The logical sequence would be horrendous, laughable, and ugly. Or how about this one? Did I just glow up or did I just grow up? I'd argue this isn't a glow up. I just grew up. I look more like an adult now. I've learned how to do makeup and I've grown out of my awkward middle school phase. I would just label those things as growing up. However, if I were to say this is a glow up, it'd also be similar to saying that anyone whom is also going through their middle school phase is worse looking than somebody whom resembles more of an adult. Obviously, this seems like a stretch, right? But we see the very thing happening in our culture right now. We can see how thousands of young girls, boys, children online are internalizing this narrative. The preteen phase doesn't even exist. The awkward middle school phase doesn't exist anymore. Children as young as 10 are putting on loads of makeup to resemble an adult. This is not to say that they shouldn't experiment with makeup or hone their makeup skills if that's what they truly desire, but there is something horribly wrong when children feel the need to put on makeup, to dress provocatively, to imitate an adult in order to feel beautiful. Tony Bryant TV made a really good video analyzing this, so if you are interested, please do check that out. What about this transformation? Most would call this a glow down. What if I were to tell you that I felt better in my after than in my before? To understand that, I have to give a bit more context. So throughout my entire life, what I felt made me beautiful was my clear skin. I wasn't skinny growing up. I didn't have a good figure. So I felt like what I brought to the table was my clear skin. So when one day I saw more pimples on my face than usual, I panicked. I thought I was being stripped away from that very thing that made me beautiful. I was desperate to find the best treatment to get rid of it overnight. I would put a bunch of cream on my face. I would try different things just to be able to get rid of 1 to 3 pimples. It wasn't even that big of a deal looking back, but I was freaking out. And no surprise, my skin only got worse because I was stressed 24/7 and I was putting a bunch of random things on my skin. And I was only aware of this because I tracked my skin, my pimples, out of obsession. I legit had I took a bunch of picture every single day just to see what changes it would have, and I would note down what I did differently. But thanks to those pictures, I noticed a pattern. I would hate my skin. I would just think, oh my god, I look at my skin, it's just getting worse. And then a week will go by, my skin will look worse because I was always stressed, and I would look back a week before at that version that was hating my skin, and I would look at her and be like, your skin wasn't even that bad. And because I was able to notice this, I changed that perspective and I questioned, what if I'm just grateful for how my skin looks right now because it just could look worse in the future. And that's exactly what happened. This is the very thing that helped me learn to be okay with the way I looked right now instead of constantly obsessing over what I had and what I didn't have. My skin looked worse, but I felt better about myself because I was not obsessed over the way I looked 24/7 as I used to be. Having that said, in my before version, I was much more unhappy simply because I was obsessed with my skin. At my after, I was much more happier because not only was I less stressed, but also because I stopped putting beauty on a pedestal. I stopped getting obsessed. I stopped checking myself in the mirror every single day. So would you call this a glow up? It is hard to define glowing up because it is dependent on everyone's perspective. You can just boil it down to, well, if you look better, you glow up. But what I think looks better might not be what you think looks better. On the other hand, there's also the argument that if I look better, I glow up. Or if I feel better, I glow up. However, looking better doesn't always correlate to feeling better. Or feeling better doesn't always correlate to looking better. There hasn't been much research on this, so I can't really say a precise number, but I would not be surprised if the majority of people consider a glow up to only be a physical thing. The internal improvement is actually far much more neglected. That is not to say there isn't content focused on that. There is more nowadays, but majority of it is focused on the physical appearance. I feel like one of the best creators that truly encapsulate what it means to glow up physically and mentally is Alivia de Andrea. Glow Up Diaries, which is pretty self-explanatory, follows her life as she tackles her own self-limiting beliefs, struggles with her appearances, and shares her thoughts along the way. It is a documented journey of her own glow up story out for the world. Her channel skyrocketed in popularity and she gained over 1 million subscribers because of that. She was well known for motivating teenage girls to hop onto their own glow up journeys because she shared her own. So it'd probably be surprising to know that she returned years later and uploaded a video titled How Glowing Up Ruined My Life. I don't want to dive into the video too much, but I do 100% suggest checking it yourself. Not only does she demonstrate very well what happens when you depend your self-worth on your appearance, but she also shows us that a generally holistic glow up journey is not something that happens over a few months or a few weeks. It can last up to years. We're so used to the movies, books, and trends that depict drastic physical changes over a few seconds or just outright skipping it, that we believe glowing up is immediate. You wake up one sunny morning and you have the body, friends, and life you have always dreamed of. So when Alivia was showing her own scripted, self-documented, and humane glow up journey, where she kept failing over and over again, people started to complain about her taking way too long. We started to blend the line from fiction into reality. Growth can take time, and her videos depict that very well. Although drastic physical transformation videos are really fun to look at and even more fun to idolize over, it shouldn't be the only side of glowing up that we care about. I understand that it is much more easier to focus on the external because that is what people can see. If you work on yourself internally, there's some things that people can't really catch. You can't really demonstrate your mental progress or inner progress without showing your vulnerable side to the public. If I dye my hair or if I lose some weight, that is visible to the human eye. However, if I spend the last few months working on my anger issues or my sleeping schedule, that is not something you can easily see, unless you really pay attention to my dark circles. One thing is true, the real issue is not just the glow up culture. The glow up culture is just a symptom of an even larger issue, which is our culture's obsession with beauty. And that is another can of worms to open. I have a video talking about beauty standards and Aphrodite, so if you're interested in that, you can also check that out. Needless to say, sometimes we do get treated better when we look physically more put together or more beautiful by conventionally attractive standards. I will not deny that, but that does not necessarily mean we're happier. It is time we start questioning whether or not these beliefs we have adopted are beneficial to us as an individual and as a collective.